All right, now we are ready for nights 10 through 12. We are finishing off our second week so far of this independent sleeping. Okay, now you guessed it. Nights 7 to 9, you are at the midpoint between your baby's crib and the door. Now we want to talk about the final phases of this gentle phase out method. Now you can see in this picture, we're outside of the room at this pace, and that's what I want to see happen. It is time to move further away here and get that visual aid further away. Get that hearing audio aspect further away, so that way your baby hears you less and is expecting less and less of your involvement. So what I want you to do now is go to your baby's crib, put them in the crib, put them in their bed, put them to sleep. And after you've done that, I want you to leave the room completely. I want you to be at a place now where your baby can hear you but cannot see you. So we're getting rid completely of the visual aspect, but still very much ensuring that your baby can hear you. And remember, we did this gradually. First, your baby could feel you from the touch, could see you and could hear you. Then we got rid of feeling you, but could still see you and hear you. We slowly phased off the seeing you. And now I don't want your baby to see you at all, but still can hear you. So I want to get rid of that to make sure that your baby can really go down on his own. But a few important things here. I don't want it to cut to a point where you feel like your baby is completely dependent on needing to hear you to sleep. So I don't want it to be a situation where you're singing, you're shushing from outside of the room and your baby's quiet. But the second you stop, he starts crying again, and then you have to do it again. Do it at intervals. You know, it doesn't have to be scientific of every 5.7 seconds, make a shush and then a sing. Just keep it every few minutes, make sure to sing and lightly shush so your baby's very aware that you are there. But your verbal reassurance is not necessarily dependent on your baby's behavior. Remember, same consistent reaction we're giving our baby, independent of what their action is. Okay? Still make sure you do this at bedtime, middle of the night, aside from any feeding time, and respond immediately. When you hear your baby, go to the doorway so you can hear your baby and you can shush and sing and offer that reassurance, okay? You want to make sure you do whatever you can. Now, if your baby sleeps with the door open, then make sure to put your chair in a place where you're not visible. I recommend leaving the door open just a crack, so that way your baby gets used to not necessarily needing to see you in the doorway. If your baby sleeps with the door open completely all the way, there's nothing to talk about, you're nervous your baby's not going to like the dark, then just make sure to put your chair a few feet away from the door or something so you're not visible. If your baby sleeps with the door closed completely, I do recommend opening in a small crack because you want to make sure your baby can hear you. That's the whole point of this. The point is that your baby still feels emotionally secure knowing that you are there. Okay, now foundations here. At this point, you might be ready to go to the good sleep finish with the nap week, which is week number 3. If you are not ready, then you can stick out these next few nights and officially finish up the second week of independent sleeping before moving forward. But if you're ready, go on over to Good Sleep Finish in the 3rd week of nap, and you'll be able to move forward with that. But don't feel rushed. If you want to continue and take it a little slower, then keep up with just doing this for this foundation of bedtime and the nights, and continue doing naps however you can. But if you feel ready, I would say 70% of babies at this stage in the game are ready to go for naps. But if you're not, then don't rush it because you don't want to burn out. You want to make sure you do an awesome situation for you so you can stick with it. Okay, now your sleep station, at this point, you're probably not going to be needing to lie on a mattress on the floor because you're outside of the room. You don't even necessarily need to set up a chair. You just want to make sure you're comfortable. You can sit on the floor. The key point is that you are not visible. Your baby can hear you but cannot see you. And every time your baby wakes up throughout the night, before they fall back asleep, unless it's one of those designated feeding times, I want you to go back to your sleep station. And at this point, it's not as technical because your baby can't see you, that you're one side, one time they wake up at that point of the room, one time in a chair, one point on the floor. They're outside of the room. Your voice is a little bit further away, so it doesn't have to be exact where you are. But what some parents opt to do here is actually just talk through a monitor. Interesting, right? Now, some babies are fine with it, but some babies hear this like mechanical voice of their parents through the monitor and they totally don't like it. They freak out a lot. So it may or may not be a good idea, but keep it consistent. Either always talk in the monitor or always talk from outside of the door, because I don't want your voice to sometimes be close by and sometimes sound a little different and sometimes be further away, because these inconsistencies can really cause your baby not to respond as well. So you can, experiment a little bit and see which one your baby likes, maybe during the day, see if your baby has a different response to it, and decide, okay, I'm going to use the monitor. The advantage of using a monitor is that you can stay in your bed comfy under your covers and just kind of talk to your baby and shush them when they wake up. The disadvantage is your baby might not like it. Or you might feel like it's kind of a substitute and you're not comfortable with it and you want to stay outside the room and physically be there. It doesn't matter to me. Just be consistent with whatever you do. Okay, feedings in the night, same thing. For your baby's age bracket, for 6 to 12 months, most babies at this stage of ending the second week of the gentle phase out method of independent sleeping, your baby can go from an 11 or 12 nursing or bottle all the way until the morning. So if you've gone slowly from 4 feedings to 3 feedings to 2 feedings, now's the time to bump it down to 1. Just feed your baby that one time around 11 or 12. Anytime they wake up before, go back to where they can hear you but not see you of your sleep station. Reassure them. Anytime they wake up once after, good to go. Can feed them that one time. But try to stick with one time unless your baby, you're still at the 2-point feedings in the night. Then try to make it your goal within the next few nights that you can get it down to 1. Because most babies, and I say most, our babies aren't robots here, but most babies at this stage in the game can go that entire 6, 7, 8 hour and even 9-hour stretch, assuming they're gaining weight during the day and they're eating properly and they're developing properly and all the, checks and I's and T's are crossed above the dotted line. But, obviously don't push your baby to do something he can't, but just keep it in mind that your baby could probably do that. So if your baby's been eating at 11 or 12 and then around 5, bump the 5 to be 6:30. If your baby's been eating around 4, bump the 4 closer and get closer to getting rid of that second one because your baby is most likely very, very ready for it at this stage. And because you have phased yourself out of the picture so much more, he doesn't need you as much. He knows how to settle back down on his own and is not as much of a dependency here going on with you. 5-second rule is the same thing. If you are doing this 1 feeding in the night, 1 bottle, 1 nursing, 1 sippy cup, 1 whatever, then if your baby wakes up and you've designated your 1 time to be 11:30 p.m., your baby wakes up at 11, same thing. Shush, sing from outside of the room, let them hear you. And if the time arises, at this point, the 5-second rule is going to be different because you're not leaving. You're not in there to begin with. So at that point, you can just go in, feed your baby straight away. If you're still doing it twice in the night, same thing. The 5-second rule doesn't really apply at this stage, only because it's not as if you're fully involved, have to leave and come back. So it's okay to just go straight away, go in and feed your baby. Spouse help rule, still the same thing. Make sure that you're not overstimulating. Now you'd think, what's the difference, Batya? But it is. Your baby knows the difference between your voices, knows the difference between the way you would talk or sing. And again, we don't want to teach child that if I cry enough, I get X or Y parent, or be overstimulated by hearing different voices. Keep it totally consistent just to make sure that you can move full force with it. Stand up, sit down rule is the same as nights 7 through 9, especially since you're not in the room. Even if you see your baby in a monitor, at this point, you're not going back into the room and laying him back down and pushing him back down and teaching. He knows what to do. So the only thing I want you doing, unless you're feeding your baby or obviously he has a soiled diaper or something technical and objective to take care of, you don't go into the room. Just sing and shush lightly from outside. Now, I want to talk about that for a minute. What if your baby's arm gets stuck in the slab of his crib or he does have a dirty diaper? First of all, if the crying ever escalates to a point where you're really uncomfortable, then you can go in and briefly technically check. If your baby's fine, go right back out. If, though, you see that your baby really needs a new diaper or you see something's really going on, I like to think of it as mopping a kitchen floor. When you're mopping your kitchen floor, you're not caressing it and loving it and hugging it and kissing it and smushing it and telling you how yummy and guilty feelings going on. No, you just clean it, you mop it, you're done. Same thing here. When your baby is dirty or your baby is uncomfortable or something happened that you have to physically help your baby get more comfortable, aside from laying down, because that we want him to do on his own. Let's say his foot or his sock came off and you think his foot is cold, or I don't know, his hand is in a funny position that he can't get out of in the crib. Just move it, change his diaper, do whatever you have to do and leave. Take care of it objectively and technically. You have the whole day to smush and kiss and love. It doesn't need to be in the middle of the night. Okay, this is the last slide here for nights 10 to 12. So as soon as you're ready, after you do nights 10 to 12, go on over to the remaining days of the independent sleeping because you are absolutely in the home stretch now.